In this episode of Trekking Through Compliance, we take a look at the deadly years.
Compliance, the final frontier. Tom Fox is the voyager of Trekking Through Compliance. His mission? To explore the original series and seek out and share what it can teach you about compliance. Here's your host, Tom Fox.
Trekking Through Compliance, Episode 41, The Deadly Years. In this episode of Trekking Through Compliance, we consider the episode The Deadly Years, which aired on December 8th, 1967, and occurred on Stardate 3478.2. Story synopsis. When Chekhov, Spock, Lieutenant Galway, Kirk, McCoy, and Scotty beam down to resupply the experimental colony on Gamma Hydra 4, they initially find no one home. Kirk is puzzled since he has just talked to the leader of the expedition only an hour before. Stranger still, Chekhov finds a dead man in one of the colony's buildings who appears to have died of old age. However, Spock maintains this cannot be true because the expedition was composed of only young people. The leader, Robert Johnson, who is age 29, then appears, along with his wife Elaine, age 27. They both appear to be extremely old. Kirk beams the landing party up together with those colonists who are still alive. Aboard the Enterprise, the colonists die of old age. Kirk puts Spock, Commodore Stocker, who is on his way to Starbase 10, and his former flame of 6 years, 4 months, and an odd number of days, Dr. Janet Wallace, on the investigative team. The only unusual event which Spock can determine is that of a comet which has passed by the planet shortly before the Enterprise arrived. Kirk then begins to lose his memory and displays advanced arthritis. Scott, McCoy, Lieutenant Galway, and Spock also show signs of aging at a rate of 30 years per day, but Chekhov curiously does not. Spock then finds the source of the affliction, apparently the comet whose tail Gamma Hydra 4 passed through is emitting a low-level radiation. Commodore Stocker becomes increasingly concerned about Kirk's condition and forces Spock to hold a competency hearing. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Galway dies of old age, and Chekhov continues to remain unaffected. Kirk is found incompetent, and Commodore Stocker takes over. He orders the Enterprise to head directly to Starbase 10 through the Neutral Zone. Meanwhile, Kirk and McCoy realized that the one difference between their experience on the planet and Chekhov's was that Chekhov was scared to death upon encountering the dead body. McCoy recalls that early investigation showed adrenaline to be a potentially useful drug for combating radiation, although it was subsequently abandoned when hydraline was discovered. Spock develops an injection containing adrenaline, and he first tries it on Kirk. Fortunately, the shot is effective, and Kirk is able to assume control of the Enterprise, which is now under attack by the Romulans thanks to Stocker's incompetence in violating the neutral zone. In a clever subterfuge, Kirk transmits a message using Code 2, which has been broken by the Romulans. He claims that the Enterprise has inadvertently strayed into the neutral zone, and he claims he will destroy the Enterprise using the corbomite device, which will destroy everything within a 200,000 kilometer diameter, and the explosion will leave a space void for up to 4 years, and all United Federation of Planet ships are to avoid it. The Romulans give a little ground lest they be destroyed in the upcoming explosion, and Kirk immediately races out of the neutral zone and into Federation space at Warp 8.
I wanted to use this episode to talk about some of the points around illness and aging. This was, I think, a really wasted opportunity in treating the illness as really scary disease of the week instead of a chance to reflect on the inevitability of growing old, since every other episode seems to reference how everyone wants to stay young and beautiful and never grow old. Kirk's old man performance almost moved into parody with almost a Jimmy Cagney impersonation, but it was perhaps never intended to be a serious examination of aging. The characters could have just easily been struck by a purple mind-affecting space pox for the purpose of the storyline. The aging aspect was there to create mystery and give viewers the fun of seeing familiar characters behaving oddly. If it doesn't hold up today, although I'm not saying it doesn't, perhaps our expectations have changed. It was also a pleasant surprise to see Stocker depicted not as an antagonist being confrontational, but someone who's generally trying to help his fellow Starfleet officers, although he obviously did lack the experience to carry it through, even though he was quite gracious at the end when he said, quote, "I am quite aware of what a starship can do with the right men at the helm," end quote. I wanted to use this episode to take a look at leadership lessons for the compliance professional. So, of course, it all starts with tone at the top and the unethical actions of executives in time immemorial, but certainly in the past 20 plus years, like Ken Lay and Bernie Eberts, demonstrate how quickly a culture of greed and misconduct can permeate an organization. Leaders must embody integrity, ethics, and commitment to compliance through their words and actions. This tone at the top sets the standards for the entire workforce. When executives engage in fraud, manipulation, cover-up, it signals to employees that such behaviors are acceptable, leading to an entire breakdown of the ethical foundation. 2, you may not think about the following, but robust internal controls are essential for leadership. Weak internal controls, lack of independent oversight, and sloppy accounting practices enable massive frauds at companies like Tyco and HealthSouth to thrive undetected literally for years. Effective internal controls, including segregation of duties, regular audits, and comprehensive financial reporting, are all crucial safeguards against misconduct. Leaders must invest in building strong systems of checks and balances to ensure transparency and accountability throughout their organization. 3, empower and protect whistleblowers. Whistleblowers like Sharon Watkins at Enron and Cynthia Cooper at WorldCom risked their careers to expose wrongdoing, obviously faced incredible retaliation and ostracization, but today's whistleblower are direct descendants of these women's courage. Empowering employees to speak up about unethical or illegal activities is essential for early detection and prevention of compliance failures. Leaders must create an environment where employees feel safe to raise concerns without fear of repercussions and promptly investigate all and address all whistleblower reports. 4, transparency and accountability are key. The opacity and lack of accountability in many scandal-plagued companies allow problems to foster and grow out of control. Transparent decision-making, financial reporting, and compliance initiatives build and trust credibility with stakeholders. Leaders must be willing to hold themselves and their teams accountable for their actions and ensure that organizations maintain the highest standards of transparency. Compliance is a competitive advantage. Companies often prioritize that compliance and ethical business practices outperform their peers over the long term. Integrating compliance into their strategic vision and making it a core part of the organizational culture can create a sustainable competitive advantage. Leaders who view compliance as value-driven rather than a mere cost of doing business position their companies for long-term success. By internalizing these crucial leadership lessons, compliance leaders and business leaders can build a more resilient, ethical, and high-performing organization that is well equipped to navigate complex compliance landscapes for the 2025s and beyond.
Join us tomorrow when we take up the episode Obsession in Trekking Through Compliance.
If you enjoyed this episode of Trekking Through Compliance, you can help it grow by sharing it with the biggest Trek fan you know.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.